Hey, this is Jason Wilson with Strategy Unscripted, and this is episode 0 of our future podcast. I'm sure this will probably be cut out. But here today with Matt Woods. Just recently this week, major virus or vulnerability was revealed, probably the worst one in history from what I understand, called Log4J or Log4Shell. Matt, would you introduce yourself? Just let us know what you do, and then would you let us know what this vulnerability is?
Yeah, so as Jason said, I'm Matt Woods. I am the IT director here at Strategy, and so I help coordinate with our clients and staff different IT projects, helping our clients also plan out their IT strategies, so that way their IT systems become a differentiator for them versus just a liability in their budget. So that's what I do day to day. And so, yeah, Jason, you kind of hit it right on the head. This Log4j is a big deal, and so multiple sources are saying that this is the biggest liability in history, and it's mainly just because of how wide use Log4j was. So Log4j is a logging library that was used in a programming language called Java, which is kind of the backbone of a lot of our programs. And so the reason that Log4j is such a big deal is because the way that it was programmed is that it is reaching out to gather different information and execute different commands in order to produce logs and to get whatever information that it needs. But this vulnerability allows it to be tricked into sending these requests to any source to execute any command or file, thus allowing a hacker to take complete control of somebody's system. And so it literally just gives someone the keys to your system, giving them, quote unquote, God access to do whatever they want. And so obviously with that, they can do a lot of things. And so that's why everyone is running so quickly to get patches and all that to get systems protected, and why we really need to take it serious and be diligent and looking for and patching it whenever we find it.
So a lot of viruses are inserted through like phishing campaigns where a user gets an email and then they're tricked into doing something, clicking on something, installing something. You're saying this particular vulnerability, the user doesn't have to be involved at all. So the attacker, without anybody's knowledge, can access a system that's available on the internet through this backdoor?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the vulnerability has to be published to the internet, which means they have to be able to gain access to it through a firewall or an access point. So it's by no means easy to exploit.
Speaking of firewalls, some firewalls are using this vulnerability or have the firewall, so they can access through the firewall and then access into your network and your computers. Is that right?
Yeah, and those are the systems where it's really dangerous. Your normal everyday program like Adobe or Microsoft, probably not going to be a huge deal. Those ones are publishing stuff publicly to the internet on their own, versus like a firewall or an access point, which is going through a firewall, or even Java's used in a lot of our camera systems or access controls, which a lot of the benefits of those new systems is that we can control them remotely. Well, that thing that we love, that convenience, is what makes those susceptible to this attack, because now they're accessible to the internet. So if a hacker can remotely access those, he can then use these commands to not just get into your camera systems, but then to use Log4j to get into the rest of your network.
Wow. So I don't want to name any brand names because I'm not sure, but popular security systems where you can see people through your door or through the front door. So a system like that could be compromised.
Correct. And luckily we don't have to name names. The community has actually really banded together because we realize how big this is. And so a lot of companies are self-reporting. So if you're wondering if you have a system or a piece of software that is vulnerable, there's an organization that we created a few years ago, we being the United States. It's called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which stands for CISA. And so if you search CISA, so CISA, into Google, you'll get onto their site. They actually have a Log4j response page, and on that page they have a public library that everyone is updating with all of the programs that run on Java. And then as we're discovering vulnerabilities, those are being reported and being updated. So you can literally go to that list, search all the software, search all the equipment that you have to see if there's any reported vulnerabilities, and then if there are any patches that you can use to patch those vulnerabilities and secure your network.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a good website to go to check that out. So pretty serious deal. Potentially worst vulnerability in history because of the exposure of all the systems, mission critical systems that have this code. So who's potentially impacted by this?
Yeah, everybody's impacted by this. Obviously, your larger businesses are going to be bigger targets, but we all can be a target. We all probably have people that maybe like us or don't like us, and so anybody that maybe has someone that doesn't like them, that has the ability to hack in through, a local firewall or anybody. So anybody's at risk. Now, there's people that probably have a higher risk than others, but it's not something that anybody wants to take a chance on because it just takes one attack. Lightning strikes somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so we all want to make sure that we're prepared, that if lightning were to strike, that we're secured as possible.
Some of the stuff I heard or read recently about this attack, the original, one of the ways that the original attack was coming through was Minecraft.
Correct.
So people were playing Minecraft, and the attackers came through Minecraft. And it wasn't that they were trying to disrupt the Minecraft game. They were seeking for crypto wallets that they could steal crypto from the Minecraft players. Is that real?
That's real. Yeah.
Wow.
So Minecraft was one of the first vulnerabilities discovered, and it wasn't in the Windows version. It was in, I think, a web version that people were still using and had the vulnerability. But yeah, they were able to go in through the chat. They were able to, through the chat, execute code on someone else's machine, which then gave them access to those machines, and the machines that had wallets on them, they were using to wipe out their cryptocurrency and steal it. So
it's not necessarily mom and dad playing Minecraft, but their 7-year-old kid on the computer. They got their wallet on the computer. Kids playing Minecraft, gets attacked, wallet's gone.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
That is a potential scenario where that could have happened.
Wow, that's amazing. So what's the risk to businesses?
I think the risk to business is just businesses usually have more software, so there's more vectors that you have to engage with. Most larger businesses have a lot of cameras, access control, security systems. So they just have more things that they need to patch. They're also just larger targets. If I have to choose between me or, a corporation, I'm probably going to choose the corporation that has more money, more files, more things to ransom, more ability to make, more money off of just a single person. So I think with the business, it's just the mere severity of that, and then how many people you have to take into account for, because it's not just one computer. Depending on the size of your company, you got to patch every single computer, every single system. So there's just more that you have to do versus my home, where I just have to worry about maybe a couple of computers for my family.
So that business owner that's saying, hey, I got a firewall, really don't need to worry about this, they can't access my stuff. The fact that the firewalls themselves are vulnerable allows them to be a target. So really every business potentially could be a target here. And that vulnerability allowing the attacker into their entire network and every computer on their network, not just computer, but phones, tablets, any IoT devices, Internet of Thing devices, a smart refrigerator. If you got something weird on your refrigerator, or it's calling out to the internet to download the temperature or something, amazing. So obviously we talked a little bit about Minecraft and crypto wallets with consumers, but consumers with home-based networks and home-based firewalls that are potentially affected as well.
Yeah. So the consumer products all have the same vulnerabilities, and like I said, Java is widely used. So it wasn't just a business thing. It wasn't just a consumer thing. It was the code that was used prevalent in all programs with Java. And so anything that has a Java base has a likelihood of having Log4J as its logging library, and thus has the vulnerability in it. So you want to look through all of your devices, all of your programs, and so there are scanners that can help with that, but they're not perfect. And so there has to be some amount of, you can scan it, but then also manually just going through, looking through your systems and then applying patches when necessary.
You bring up scanners. There's been recently a lot of scanners have come out. I'm guessing from a lot of reputable companies, security companies, probably some scanners out there that are scammy scanners, trying to trick people into scanning, installing, and then getting infected as a result of the scanner itself. Are scanners reliable? Do they need to be? Is it good to use a scanner? Who should you use a scanner from? How reliable is it?
Yeah, most of the scanners that are out there are going to require professional. Just requires writing some code, packaging it up. The scanners are better than nothing, but they're not 100% reliable. The problem with Log4j is it's not just a file that can be searched for. It's a piece of code that's written within a program, and rightfully so. A lot of programs are locked down. They don't want to be able to be searched, because then someone can go search a program and steal the code, take proprietary information. So a lot of that stuff's locked down. So a scanner can only scan what it's able to see. And just unfortunately, Log4j is not publicly published by all the programs to make it easy to be seen. So all that a scanner can do is scan and say, hey, here's where I've identified Log4j, but it's never going to produce for you an exhaustive report of saying, here's all the vulnerabilities. So you want to do scans because you can find some instances, but you're not going to find all of them. And that's where that CISA resource becomes such a big deal, is because you can constantly be looking through. And that's the thing, is this isn't going to be solved overnight. We're not talking about we're going to get through it next week and then we're good. This is probably going to be something that's going to take place over the next couple of weeks, even maybe a couple of months, depending on when companies report and produce patches. So the scanners going will allow you to constantly be scanning for that stuff. But the other thing that they really can help with is identifying a potential breach. And so while they can't scan necessarily for the code that's deep within some of those software packages, what they can do is scan for a vulnerability being used, so that if someone does use a Log4j vulnerability to get into your system, the more often you do those scans, the quicker you can catch those, which could be the difference between quarantining it before an attack is launched, or letting an attack happen and then, whatever the attacker wants to do, whether it's ransomware, stealing your data, deleting your data, or anything like that. And so the scanners are helpful, but they're not going to be foolproof.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point. That a lot of times these vulnerabilities come into like Microsoft Windows. So Microsoft pushes a patch out, everybody's happy. This particular piece of code was in so many different devices, firmware, software packages, used in almost everything major that you might be using. And so a lot of patches are coming out. Companies are self-reporting and the patches are coming out, but a lot of companies are probably struggling, especially smaller companies will be working on getting those patches created and won't be reporting until they have a patch, because if they report, then it becomes obvious that they're a vulnerability or a vector. So yeah, this is going to take a while to clean up.
Yeah.
Let's see. How would somebody know if they've already been impacted or affected or infected by this?
Yeah. So if you're able to run the scans, obviously running those scans will be helpful. The other thing is, I say, just if someone's on your system, your virus scans can potentially catch them. So if you have endpoint detection and response, you have an antivirus, running those scans regularly to see if they catch anything. Also, just looking at your system. A lot of times, when hackers come in, they may change something around or move something. Your computer may run slower than normal, where, your computer was running fine and now all of a sudden it's sluggish. You go and, to get in a task manager, maybe it was running at, 8 gig of RAM usage and you had 16, so you're at 50%, not that big of a deal. But now all of a sudden it's maintaining at, 12 gigabits of RAM being used, and it's constantly slow. That's usually evidence of some type of program running in the background using your RAM. So I think paying attention to those performance issues, missing files, was there a file you used to have something that's not there anymore? So those are just telltale signs that someone may be into your system. But then, like I said, if you have an IT company that you work with, having them run scans on a regular basis to be able to see if they can catch those vulnerabilities via the scan. But if you don't have an IT company, I think just running your own antivirus, just being diligent at looking at your systems, making sure they seem like they're supposed to, and then when they're not, reporting that out and helping someone clean up your system. But I would definitely recommend for a business, you don't want to be doing this on your own. If you're not an IT professional, you really need to be reaching out for an IT professionals to be able to do scans and look at this and really help you navigate. There's just too much at stake to take a chance on this.
Yeah. So if I believe I've been compromised, what's my remedy? A lot of times, also, hackers will kind of sit in the background, collecting all the data, watching your passwords, collecting your keystrokes, downloading files. So if I believe I've been compromised, what do I do? And another question, I guess maybe you can answer this one. This vulnerability just came to light, but obviously this vulnerability has been out in the wild for a long time.
Yep.
So are there serious concerns that people need to be taking on just finding out if they've been compromised already? Because hackers could have been sitting there watching for months at this point, or years even.
Yeah. We don't know how long. I mean, This just got discovered last week, but we don't know if someone discovered it before then and just hadn't declared it to anybody else. So there is a chance that it has been used, and that's where I think engaging a professional to scan your system becomes important. They're going to be able to find that. Now, in terms of if you think that you've been breached, my first thing is I would just say disconnect your computer from your network. So take it off the network so that way it can't be accessed.
So only internet-connected devices are really vulnerable. If you think you're compromised, you can cut that down and stop that hacker from accessing your machine if you disconnect from the internet.
Yeah. The moment that it's disconnected from the internet, there's no way for an outside agent to gain access to it. There's no connection into there. So disconnecting from the network is going to protect you from releasing a thing. You can then take that to an IT company. They can sandbox it. They can get into it and begin to work and try and clean it up, begin to reset it. And so that's going to be the biggest thing is just disconnecting it from the network. If you're a company, follow your guys' breach protocol. So most companies, if you're large, assuming you have an IT company, you're large enough, they have a breach protocol of what they want you to do the moment that you think you're breached. It usually starts with disconnecting your computer from the network, usually then calling the IT department or the IT company for them to, gain access to that computer and then move through. I would also say if you think you've been breached, not on the computer that you think has been breached, but once that's disconnected from the network, go to a different device and reset all of your important passwords. So your bank accounts, if you have any loans, any of that stuff that contains that real personal information, you'd want to go and change those passwords. So that way, even if they did have access to in their computer, they're not going to have access to the new passwords. And then you would just need to wait for that company to do scans and to make sure that they've got everything secure for you.
That's a good reminder to use password protection, password services like
Yep.
LastPass, things like that. So you're not exposing actual passwords, and you can use super long passwords to protect yourself in that. How do you, so if you feel like, okay, you're not compromised and you've done the scans, how do you ultimately protect yourself from this?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that you can do that are really helpful. First is there are tools out there that are called remote maintenance and monitoring tools. They're going to be monitoring your computer 24/7, looking for any of these abnormalities that we're talking about. I think reaching out to a company to install their RMM onto your computer is a great way to do that. In addition to that RMM tool, you should also, if you still are working on an old antivirus, move up to what's called an endpoint detection and response software, which is AI that is looking for any behavioral abnormalities to be able to interact with them. So if a hacker is on there, it's going to look for that malicious intent and it's going to try and lock that hacking attempt down, quarantine that piece of software, quarantine the user. It's going to be your best defense. So getting RMM, getting endpoint detection and response, and then also going back to the passwords. You can have great passwords, but if someone wants into your account today, they're going to get in. It doesn't matter how complex your password is, how long it is. The best way to defend against that is to get MFA, which stands for multi-factor authentication, set up on all of your accounts. That way, even if someone does get access to your passwords, they're not going to have that second factor of authentication, which would be your phone, or there's also tokens that you can use that produce 6-digit codes that have to be on your person. So setting that up is going to protect you a long way from someone using a keylog or whatever to get your passwords, because they won't have that second layer. But I think getting that RMM on there, getting some version of endpoint detection and response, getting MFA are keys to protecting yourself against this. And they're also going to be running those scans regularly. So that way, as we move forward, they're going to be able to detect any type of breach way before you will.
Great. Well, Matt, I know our teams are really busy right now trying to help our clients resolve these issues and get everybody patched and learning more, and we're learning more every day. So thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with us about this. So if we have somebody out there that listens to this and they need more info or need help, how would they go about reaching out to our team to help with that?
Yeah, there's two ways that they can reach out to our team. The first way is they can call our support line, where they'll get one of our technicians on the phone. And so our support line is 913-440-4925. I know I said a little fast, so if someone else needs it, it's 913-440-4925. The other way is to email our support team, and that is support@strategytechservices.com. Again, that's support@strategytechservices.com. That phone number and that email goes to our entire tech team. Obviously, as you talked about, we're in the middle of this, so please give us a little bit of grace in response time. Normally we would respond much quicker than what we're going to in the next few days. Also, with Christmas coming up, it's really close. But that phone number, that email address are going to be the best ways to contact our team to get help during this time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt, again, for coming in and talking with us about Log4J and Log4Shell. This has been Strategy Unscripted.